Yes.
Yeah.
I'm
I
in
found
tomorrow.
it interesting. I found it interesting that it wasn't like a solid hour. It was also a half an hour that was different, which
Yeah.
I've never heard of it. Yeah, I guess not.
It's only here. Everything's just
Okay.
a little bit different in Australia.
Yeah. That's okay
Sometimes
though.
often for the better. But yeah, they just tack on that one half an hour, just make it a little bit more complicated. And believe me, I am like the worst math person and the
Oh
worst
no,
schedule.
me too. I have to go Google. Yeah,
And
definitely.
even that I have to check 9 times. That's how I'll get it
Yes.
wrong.
No, yeah, me too. It's all good. It's all good. So, yes, Dave and I met each other on Deborah Lupien's election psychathon and worked together there. And then Dave did a fabulous regression for me. And I've got lots of questions about those things. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. And we're going to talk about, a few other things that are kind of prescient, as Dave would say. And he's going to also remind you of something that he's going to upload that is another thing that's going to be awesome. So I'm going to let you go ahead and talk, Dave.
So the upload is actually Deborah Lupien, and she was not just channeling, but full-on trance channeling. It may have been the first time for her. You might confirm that with her, but it felt like it was the first time. And boy, did she have some information about the last election. It is really just, I just have to tell people, because I think this is really essential. There is real difficulty now knowing what to put out on YouTube. First of all, normal people, everyone is afraid. We are afraid that we might become targets. We're afraid we'll get sued. We're afraid that because we don't know what's going to happen. So just making this show is Aley, is just, it's very brave of you. And all of those people out there, I would say be cautious, but be brave. Now is not the time to go into fear. And if you are making some kind of precautions to protect yourself, that's totally fair. I understand. But we are in this moment where we have to make these decisions, and putting up the video that I'm going to put up is kind of one of those decisions where I just go straight into the case. I know everybody, all the facts seem to contradict your readers who are saying that more is happening than meets the eye. The facts seem different. We have been massively contradicted. But I have to tell you, every single time I go and check this energy, I get the same thing.
The same thing.
Expect a miracle in the next. And I do this when I trans channel, I do this when others trans channel, and I keep getting the same message, which is expect a miracle in 10 days. Things will shift in a way that is so dramatic. You couldn't even dream of it.
Right.
People who would respond to that, I say, look, think of January 6th.
Absolutely. We didn't really have it on our radar. That's right.
No one could ever have dreamt that would happen. And look at many things in the last 8 years. No one could ever believe that would happen. So we are in a disturbing situation. We don't want to give people false hope, and we don't want to misrepresent. And hey, maybe I am just talking to myself here on some level. But every time I go, Spirit, am I crazy here? Send me a message.
I know.
The seal will pop out of the ocean next to me, and I'm like, okay,
Oh, wow.
Yeah, my hands will start to tingle at one point. It's just, I keep getting it over, getting it confirmed, because of course I have my doubts too. And I'm not going to say maybe we could be making a mistake. Maybe something really did change on the timeline, and you do need to take care of yourself. But definitely, don't listen to Dave Johnson. Just go and meditate and calm yourself and connect to spirit and see what message you get. Now is the time, right?
It is.
Now is the time to verify your own.
And one of my questions here, or to just talk about, was our own psychic developments upgrading. And of course, we're in the ascension, so we have to think, yes, of course they are. But people should really trust what they feel. And I've always said that. I've always said, you know better than we do. Really, for yourself, especially. So I'm glad you brought that up. Yes, thank you. So I watched Sterling I think it was Friday. And then you came right on after Sterling. I know you didn't do it on, but you said the same thing in different words. Sterling said.
Yeah.
And I also know Marianne down there, down under, has really nailed a lot of things. And Linda, of course. But yeah, it's interesting because usually the psychics don't talk to each other before they give there isn't that, they don't do that. So when you see one then after the other, especially when it's so fast, you wouldn't have even been able to see that as it hadn't been up yet. So it is really it's calming. And yet I belong to Threads, which is like the new X without him. And I have like I joined it in the first week, and I have about 5,600 Democratic people on there. And it was wonderful because I could pick and choose at the time. And I had watched a couple of astrologers who said, look for December, I think it was 6th and 7th, but by the 15th of December, something like that. And so I wrote, everybody's lamenting on there. Oh, Joe didn't do this. Joe's bad. Joe's not doing anything, this, that. And I said, really? You don't think Joe's doing anything? I said, he didn't tell us he was going to step down either. One day he just did.
Right.
And I said, do you think he would want to see his country destroyed if he could do anything about it? And they're like, well, how do you know? How do you know? And I'm not going to tell them how I know. So I just kind of say intuition. And yeah. And we just and then I said planetary things. The planetary is unbelievable. It's the time of the 1776. It's time of the Civil War. All the planets are in those configurations. Yeah.
Well, and it does, since you mentioned this timing, it does remind me of the past life regression that we did with you, Aley. Right. And we were in the 18th century and all that information and all those, the difficulty of the French Revolution, which you as lady, the lady who we think is
the Salonnaire.
That lady. It was so prescient that she's standing there worried if she's going to get in some kind of trouble. And unfortunately, she was kind of the servants who hid her. But she was right in the mix there. And it was so telling, because we think of this time as freedom, age of reason, all that stuff. But when you were in that state, you're like, no way. We were radical people.
Certain people. You had Robespierre with his reign of terror, just wanting to kill everybody and do everything.
Madame Helvetius. That's who we suppose that you were.
Yes, absolutely. Of course, I've listened to it a few times, and there's also 2 other regressions that I ended up doing that day as well. But that one, was, I think, very important for us. And I am just dying to talk about, the things that you go through when you're going through this, because for Dave, he does this really long, it's a couple of hours long work where he gets you to be relaxed enough so that you can feel comfortable enough and come out and talk. And it was one of the best experiences I've really ever had. It really was.
Okay, I'm so glad. I'm so glad, Aley. You're a perfect subject here. Most people are able to regress. It's a very, very small portion of people who I think I could do it if I had several sessions with them, but they're not necessarily built to go to intuition. And this is maybe 1 out of 100, right? And I think if I were, really game, I could keep going with those people if they were really game and maybe get someplace. But there's also some people who just go right in there. Intuitive types, no problem seeing what they see. And it would work really, really well there. I just love doing this kind of work. It is taxing. If you look at me during channeling or doing these things, people sometimes wonder if I have some, a disability, because I will be moving like this. I am a little different in the sense of when I do.
That's okay.
Both of us. It's almost like we're both in a state of trance that helps me know what questions to ask. because
Correct.
I do have a script, and then
Uh-huh.
most of the time I'm like, ditch the script. We
Sure,
are
because
just,
something comes up. Yeah,
yeah,
something comes up
and
in
it's like
conversation.
you're saying,
Yeah,
ask me this question, ask that question, because it'll be like the most random things
it
sometimes.
is. Yes.
But the great thing is that the subject, the people that are doing it are, kind of amazed as they're doing it themselves. And they can give real details like, this is
Yeah.
how you put a shoe on a horse in the 17th century. And you're talking to this person who's no
Yeah.
idea what that's about. And
Right.
so
Right.
it's really
Yeah.
interesting. I mean, it's taxing, but it's really interesting because you're both
Sure.
going someplace at the same time. It's like sort of channeling together. And I
Hmm.
find the information that comes forward is really relevant for our time, but
It
the
is.
information a lifetime is really relevant to the person.
You're
It
absolutely.
like answers lots of questions in their lives and
It
provides a lot
does.
of. Mm-hmm.
Well, the other thing that is so interesting to me, Dave, after we were all done, was that Dave felt he had lived in that time period and loves that time period. And then
Yes.
I had another situation in another uh, part of my past life that was something also that Dave and I had a commonality with. And it had to
Mm,
do with the former guy that's, that man. And he had a thing with him in a past, and I did too, which I don't know. It's like we talked about this. We never talked about, well, what are you interested in? As
right.
a historic people or whatever. So
Mm-hmm.
there's a couple of things that come from that, and I think what I want to say is that soul recognition is definitely a real thing. Number one, and that we know intuitively the people that we need to work with in order to work with the energies that we also feel as well. So it's just incredible, really, to me.
Mm-hmm.
I would never have, I never really thought that prior to that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, do you ever get people that are really surprised by the connections that they make, either with something in your life or in a past life that explains to their interest in things, why they might like not want to go on a ship or because of
Yes.
the yeah, okay, yeah,
Yeah, absolutely, 100% of the time. Like I
hmm,
will give maybe it's better to give an example from my own life. I go swimming. I moved to near the beach, and so I go swimming often,
uh-huh,
almost every day now that it's summer. Terrific.
sure, yeah,
You never go as far out and swim as far out where my feet don't touch the ground.
uh-huh,
I love to swim. I am happy to swim in a lot of places. I prefer the ocean to even a swimming pool, but there's just something about it. I just don't like it when my feet aren't touching the ground. And I
yeah.
had
I don't blame you. I don't
a
blame you.
minor childhood experience, was pretty minor, but I think I have always had a sort of wake up dream, when you kind of remember little bits of it, where
Yep.
I was in the times of Columbus and I was in a boat and I was sinking. And I remember just the pieces of wood and stuff like that happening. And um,
Wow.
I've gotten a few indications of that lifetime, and a couple of other lifetimes involving water,
Hmm.
which is such a
Hmm.
generative thing. At the same time,
Yeah.
it's so
Yeah.
huge and so fearsome. But let me tell you, every single person, when they end the session, there's maybe a cool couple of people who are like, wait a minute, was that really hypnosis? Because it was light enough that they
Yeah.
thought maybe it was my imagination.
Hmm.
Most people are a little deeper than that. And I would
Hmm.
find that so those people who are like, over time, as things get confirmed, they're like, wait a minute. It's sort of like the first time you do something mystical, magical, and then it comes true, and you're like, well, well, that's interesting. And
That
then
was a
some of
good guess.
yeah,
Right.
some of the things you see keep happening, right?
Yeah.
But
Uh-huh.
pretty much, I'd say 95% of the people are astounded. They're really astounded at how it connects to this life, how
Uh-huh.
real it is.
Yeah.
And I would even say some of them are, well, often in those sessions, this is like uncomfortable, but it's necessary. Sometimes people will need to cry for 5 minutes. They need to
Sure.
get out the terrible death or the end of the love that they had or the loss or, the separations that they'd felt. And I need to get that out of there. And then, of course, I'm typical of the type of person who's like, I want to reach out, hug them, and stop them from crying. I don't want you to cry, but I
Sure.
gotta let them, because it's like there's this huge release. And when I'm sitting there and I'm doing that, it really is like that. Just
It
whatever
is.
happened.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
can feel it. They can feel
Mhm.
it. You have the empathy. They're crying. It's very,
Mhm.
very real.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah. They're
um,
living it. They're living it. That's right. That's
that's
right.
what's I'm typical American male. It's very difficult for me to get to my feelings. As I say, it took me many years to get to the point where I
Uh-huh.
could somewhat understand my feelings. I'm nowhere near any woman on the planet, but I'm a little bit closer, right? And as I
Wow.
get
Wow. Uh-huh.
closer, these things come up, and it's like, oh wow, I'm
Yeah.
confronted by these feelings.
Yeah.
It tells me so much of what we do is not motivated by facts or logic. It's motivated by feelings.
Yes.
And now I have to pay attention to that in my own life. But I think that's something that's just organic to many of your viewers. Whereas for me, I come from intuition, and feelings are like the last thing that I understand.
I get
So
it. No, I totally get it. Yeah.
it's an
But
emotional thing as
I
well.
have to say that I've had Akashic readings, and I've
Mhm.
even done some Akashic readings, but they aren't as powerful as the
Mm.
regression. They just aren't. And you see so much more in the regression than you do when you're going through the Akashic, I think. But
Uh-huh.
one of the things I've always had an issue with is I have the weirdest phobia, which is a phobia of fish. They scare me, and their eyes and their mouths, and so I was always asking why I had that. And
Mhm.
part of it was a childhood trauma where I fell in the water and my aunt pulled me out. I was probably 5, and she said she caught a big fish. And I think that the feelings associated with falling into the water made that
Mm.
a fear. But there were also some times that I was left alone in a boat on the water, and I died out there somewhere.
Wow.
So, yeah. So, what you're feeling about touching the ground, and I'm that way. I don't swim that well, but are you going out there by yourself when you go out in the water to swim?
Well, let me tell you, I would never swim alone in Australia if I didn't live here.
Okay.
Because
Yeah.
where I live, it's like the one place that does not have a terrible riptide. And this is just information. Anyone that visits Australia, don't ever swim alone, and be
Yeah.
extremely careful when you swim. It is like nothing in California. The
Right.
stretches and
Right.
the problems with the waters. I've seen some people come very close to drowning. Um,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
but here, there is no riptide. It's usually flat as a pancake. And there's
Okay.
nothing realistically for me to
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
afraid
Okay.
of. There are, maybe a
Yeah.
shark once every 5 years, comes near someone, and it's not
Yeah.
that much to worry about. But yeah, I am
Yeah.
swimming alone.
I had the same thing. We went to Hawaii, and we always went at Christmas time, and Hawaii's got really bad, usually bad waters around that time of year. And my husband, I was watching him. He was just standing on the water's edge, and he got knocked over by a wave. And I thought to myself, thank God he wasn't further out, because it stunned him. And
Right.
I've read where some honeymooners are out there and they don't come home. So yeah, you got
Yeah.
to be really careful.
Yeah. Be
Yeah.
very careful when you swim here.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, that's really interesting about the past lives. Have you ever done a future life?
No, I have never done that. What an
Oh,
interesting idea, Allie. And by the way, there is much more of Allie's regression that I am going to kind of put up. I just
uh-huh.
got distracted by recent events. There are many
Oh,
more
yeah, yeah,
really
yeah. No, that's
informative
fine.
things. So
Yeah.
by all means, we will see more of Allie's stuff, or her session, because it was really brave of you
Mhm.
to do. But no,
Yep.
I haven't really done that.
Yeah.
It's
Might
funny
be
that I
fun.
would be often telling the future, but I have never really thought of a
Yeah, I
future.
know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Moving
Um,
somebody into the future. I remember my husband, when I first met him, he said it was like a vision that he had. And this would have been before I knew him. So it was like the 80s. And he remembered walking down the street and seeing these cars that looked so unusual looking. And he was explaining cars, kind of like Tesla's truck. the dump truck, I call it, things like that came years and years and years later. And I just thought that, and I've read a couple of books as well on future viewing, which,
Mhm.
and it's not remote viewing because that's current. So it'd be future. It would be fun. It might be something you
Yeah,
want to look into.
I have to take it back. One time I worked with a fellow named Dr. Schwartz, and he studies these kinds of things. And he asked me, and he asked like 50 other psychics about a certain time in the future.
Uh-huh.
That was, I very specifically saw, it was supposed to be far in the future, and I saw people in Baltimore, Maryland, and what life was like then. It was the future. Interestingly enough, one of the things that I saw, and this was just before COVID, was everybody was wearing a mask. So
Yeah.
it might be the problem. Maybe I didn't go far enough in the future.
Sure.
There's another future where we have to wear masks, and so but I did do that once, and it was informative. I was surprised with the mask thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is my kids helped me take the stuff out of my RV this weekend, and it was full of mold. So they came over with their masks on, which was really smart of them because who needs that in their lungs? And so, you could have that kind of an event, or it could be certainly climate event that the air is bad. So,
Right.
it could be one of many things, but wow. All right. So that was the other question I wanted to know. All right. So when you go in to do your channeled stuff, and I believe that's what you're doing when you give us updates. You're channeling the man in the moon. And
Right.
when you're talking to us, it isn't really Dave. It's coming through Dave. Am I right with that?
Yeah, that's correct. Mm-hmm.
That's all right.
I would say there's a little bit of Dave. So
Okay.
I'm going to make a distinction between channeling and trance channeling.
Okay.
So I've only learned to trance channel in the past year and a half, maybe two.
Okay.
What I do generally when I'm doing my regular show is I'll ask a question, I'll have an image, and then I will translate what I think it means. So I've found that I am off, but spirit isn't off. When I go back and I look at the images that I was given, I was asking perhaps the wrong question. The answer came too soon. I didn't know who I was talking about. So sometimes I would ask like, who's the leaker in the White House? And I would get this person that looks similar because I don't know the actual person. So I couldn't say the name.
Sure. Yeah.
So it's maybe important to notice that in channeling, the channeling that I do, it is when it is not trance, there is an element of me interpreting what's going on. And that interpretation is just a human one. It's often wrong.
Right.
Sometimes wrong.
Well, you're making a really good point because even when we do cards, we're interpreting as a person or psychic work as a person what that means to us. And it may not be exactly what it really is. And then we see it later. Oh, well, that must have meant this. So I totally get it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And it's subjective, of course, because in the sense, part of it is just your feeling. Like, oh, this card's giving me a good feeling. This card's giving me a bad feeling. How do you explain a feeling? Well, it's a feeling, so you just do your best. But one reason I made this channel is because I wanted people to see me make my mistakes, right? I wanted to see, first of all, am I accurate? And then second, I want to see, hey, if I've made a mistake, go back. If you want to learn to channel, you don't have to pay anybody anything. Go back and say, oh, well, he was off like this, or this was just a premature question. Ultimately, it went like this.
Or it was worded differently. It should have been worded differently. Yeah.
Or the image means something else. And we would also have to say that it appears that no one can predict the future perfectly, because it appears that there is free will. And Kavanaugh was an example. 5 days before before he was completely finished his nomination process, I kept going in there, and of course I was super stressed about it, and I kept getting this. Every time, show me this, and I thought, oh, he won't get in. That was them saying something changed. Stop reading on that. No. And I just didn't have the vocabulary there to read that.
Correct, because it is a different vocabulary. I really
want to emphasize, everybody can do this work. It's just a question of willing to make mistakes, willing to be wrong. And you don't have to do that on YouTube. You could do that at home and learn on your ways. You know,
That's
when I first started this work, I was not accurate at all. And I really just didn't know what I was doing. I credit a friend named Ronnie because I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to be a psychic. And she just pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed, and she made me do the first one. I don't know how accurate it was. It didn't feel particularly accurate, but she did not stop because she knew my future. Because Ronnie's good at the future, and I'm so glad she did. And I just want to encourage everybody. You know, as you're going through this, it is totally like try this, turn this way, observe it. The ultimate observer is you.
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
You are the one who will learn and find out. And don't dwell too much on your mistakes if you make them. Just note it and say, what might I do differently this time? And then see a month later, well, it was only a half mistake or something.
That's right. That's right, Dave. One of the things that a lot of us ended up doing was, of course, there were I'm probably 20 or 30 psychics that did not see the Orange Man. They saw Kamala. And there was so much energy around Kamala in all of those things that she was in, the events that she was in, the energy and the synergy of all the people and the singers and all that. And we all felt like, in a way, like we duped everybody, even though it wasn't our intention. It wasn't like we knew and we just told everybody what they wanted to hear. But there was a lot of people that really questioned themselves after that. And as you mentioned earlier in the show, there are some people that are just stepping away now, even if it's not completely, it's from the political scene. So, and it makes sense.
It does. Well, look, I mean, the political stuff, the political work, it really is a labor of love. It's very, you might be wrong. It might not work out the way, and then you look like a fool, and people will get quite angry at you for misleading.
They do.
They are angry. They wanted the answer.
Way. Yeah.
Right. And so there's that. But it is it's a challenge because emotionally it means I got to watch a lot of news, which is just depressing as heck, you know. And if you're trying to do this trans-channeling level and then you're working on this political level, it makes your week kind of up down.
You feel dirty, like you feel dirty in that energy.
That's a great way to put it. You do feel dirty, and it's not it's just it's an unpleasant process. If things die down, and I do believe that they will in a few months, I could see not doing very much political stuff anymore. And
don't need to though, probably.
You can ask yourself, how much. I'm always compelled. How much is it helping? Right? Is it helping people to get some closure on this? Well, I mean, I try not to watch other readers, and I never do in most situations. But in this particular one, I'm like, gosh, this is pretty. Nobody recently. So I watch cash readers, this time. I never do. I watch Linda. I watch Leah and stuff like that. So at this time, I do occasionally do that. I have, although I usually don't. But look, this is what gets me, and this is what makes me think that something else is afoot. Even now, when I tune in to Kamala Harris, I get her with the sword of justice. Now, maybe she's just symbolizing justice, and justice is going to come in some other ways. But even now, I did that before. I still get it now. I still get that sort of energy. And, I must say what I see, and that's what I see.
I wonder, wouldn't it be surprising if, and I don't know anything. I just, as you said that, I could see maybe him seating her on the Supreme Court. That's the ultimate justice,
that would be intriguing.
Wouldn't that be something? Once again, it's like that representation. You see this, and this is what you think it means, but it might mean something else. And that, I mean, I'm not saying it will, but it's just, she'd be perfect on there. And so would Barack. If he, I'd love to see the two of them on there and pack that court. Honestly, I would.
Interesting. You guys, I can't help but be distracted by your really interesting questions and your compliments, everybody. Don't hesitate to compliment your readers right now. They're going through a lot.
We are going through a lot.
Really, it's some major stress on our part.
Definitely. I remember when I woke up the day after the election, I had lost like 30 people. which isn't a lot, but
Right.
then somebody said it was 30 bots probably, which is probably, it could be true, you know. And then after I posted something, I got like 60 more back.
Right.
And then I lost 20. So it's like this flux thing. And I know what it is. I know what it is. It's people that are not sure who they want to listen to, I guess. I don't
Right.
know, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, one
So,
thing I found really interesting, as you mentioned, the bots, is obviously they're watching.
oh,
Right.
yeah.
So why are they
Mhm,
watching us if they don't think that we have something to say? And I have
mhm.
been told by people that we are, there are people within the government who do watch us and believe
You
what we
watch
do
us. Yeah.
and make
Yeah.
decisions on that. I've been told
Yeah.
that by people who are in the government,
Yeah.
and you.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Get
So
it.
I'm just looking at the question from Vic
Big
Vic.
Brother is watching. So here's my there was I can't remember what reader said this, but it was something that I thought of at the moment that it happened. There was a time when Trump came to town and he was in Dulles Airport and his plane was there, which was actually Jeffrey Epstein's plane.
Right.
And there was a Russian plane that parked next to it, like, and another one, I think it was a Saudi plane, and they were in a triangle, sort of, so to speak. Somebody mentioned that something really did happen there. And I thought
Uh,
so immediately. It's just too suspicious for me.
It seems
So,
interesting.
yeah.
Well, one odd thing that I have often seen is something that looks like Trump leaving, and I see him on an airplane, and I see him with Middle Easterners, and it
Yeah.
felt like escape. But maybe
Yep.
that is what I saw.
And you know what? I agree with you because I really believe if there is an escape, that's exactly where he'll go.
Yep,
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think so
Yeah.
too. Yeah,
They've got his back, you know.
yeah.
So, yeah. Um, wow. Anyway, yeah, thanks everybody. So Carol Young, you asked if there's any good political news coming, and Dave did say in the very beginning, and he said it in yesterday, I think, on his video that he did, that 10 days. You said something that
Yes.
we won't even have it on the radar. Yeah.
Yeah, haven't said it until now or the show, but
Uh,
yes, 10 days. 10 days,
yeah.
something is going to change. Again, having done the videos that I've done, I mean, every day I'm going in there and trying to confirm and find out, whether
Right.
this is my mistake or not. And I
Hmm.
have a variety of ways, including channels who I speak to, and also. With Deborah, when she was in the state of trance, confirmed 10
Okay.
days, 10 days from now,
Okay.
everything, you will be absolutely amazed by what happens. I'm
Yeah.
not going to go further into exactly what that is,
Yeah.
but in
Yeah.
10 days, things will be, according to this
Different. Yeah.
channel,
Yep.
things will be like a miracle will occur. We'll
Yes.
be
Yes. So,
astonished.
yeah. And
I'm
Dave's
also
going to put that video up after the show
right.
that he had
So,
with Deborah. So look for it when it goes up. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and that'll be coming out in pieces over time because people tend to not want to watch more than 12 minutes of a video. So I
Yeah.
will be putting it up.
Yeah.
I'll also say that there are some interesting investigations going on.
I
And
believe that. Mm.
and this is just on the surface of what we know. One
Right.
of them was the people who gamble on who the presidency will be. They
Yep.
just had their offices raided, right?
Yeah.
And if you
Yep.
think about that, I mean,
Yeah.
why would they raid those offices? Yeah, it's illegal to do that, but it's been illegal for years. And
It has
now
been. Yeah.
we're
Yeah.
investigating that. And, it just seemed really odd. It just seemed very heavily weighted at some point
Yeah.
in Trump's favor. And then it was 50-50. So
Hmm.
if
Yeah.
someone, for entertainment purposes only, but if someone knew what
Right.
was going to happen,
Yeah.
they put that money in and they made billions and
Oh, he
billions.
did. He said, "I better not. Trump better not lose, or I'm going to lose a lot of money." Is what he said.
Who
So he
said?
knew. He did. Elon said it. And
Wow.
there's a picture of Elon, Don Jr., and the guy that owns Poly Market and some other. They're all sitting around at a table laughing. And the interesting thing was too that there was a at one point, who said this is what the map is going to look like. That's what he said. And the map, when it all was said and done, looked exactly like that. In other words, every single one of them. And that's just too coincidental to me.
There's a lot of things that are bizarrely coincidental.
Yes.
It is bizarre to me that more people would vote for Hillary Clinton than Kamala Harris.
Yeah.
Kamala Harris did not have the baggage that Hillary Clinton did.
No, she did not.
A lot of us were like, not so sure about her. Those people did not turn around and vote for Trump. I don't think that 10, 20 million people did that. That, rationally speaking, does not make sense to me. And, there's just a lot of other things that, do I believe Trump won every swing state? I just find that hard to believe.
And you notice they gave him Minnesota, which actually wasn't a swing state, but they knew, well, that wouldn't probably work if they gave it to him because of Tim Walz living there.
Right.
But I saw people in line in Pennsylvania and people in line in Michigan on the news, and they were young people, and they were waiting 7 hours to vote. And every time they asked the young person, who are you voting for? Her, every time. And
we can also know about the bomb scares. Several million people in Georgia's vote was repressed. That is that they took them off the road rolls and then sent them a postcard. And of course, they don't respond to postcards. It looks like junk. And they thought they voted, but when they mailed it in, it didn't count. Or when they went in to get a provisional ballot, it didn't count. So there are a lot of procedural ways that that they used. Those are just facts. I would say at the beginning, look at all those facts.
And interesting, I've noticed, and I'm not watching the news per se, but I have noticed on Threads, if I go on there, that the ballots that were counted, like in California for congressmen, and there was another place for North Carolina, they flipped after the out-of-state, the out-of-country votes came in, and now they're Democratic and not Republican. So
here's just one more practical thing to show you. Don't think this has my address on it, so I can show it to you. You know when it arrived? 4 days ago.
So you never got to vote?
Well, I did, because I called and I requested. I have been battling, trying to vote. Now, I'm registered in California, so how hard would that be? First year, I sent my vote in 3 weeks ahead of time. Didn't count. Called California, and this was in 2016. Called California and said, well, maybe there was a problem with your signature. And I'm looking at them going, who decides that my signature doesn't match? Are they supposing that somebody, went to Australia, snuck into my box, filled it out for me, and I didn't notice, right? It's who decides these things? That was the first time. Second election, which was the midterms, I tried and I tried and I tried. I faxed. I spoke to a colonel in the military who said, yes, I'll be sure your vote is counted. And still, it was not counted. The Army votes were counted.
And that's California, and California is usually pretty fair. I mean, it's not like a southern state.
But I ordered my ballot months beforehand, and it got to me maybe 2.5 months beforehand. But the book that goes along with it takes 2.5 months to travel to the mails. When I did vote, I voted, and 5 weeks after I voted, I called to see if it had registered, and it had not.
Wow.
And it does not take 5 weeks for it to go from one place to the other. That's about the post office doing something with my vote. So she said, try again, and we'll just count the first one. And I did, and 10 days later, it did arrive, maybe a couple of weeks before the election. But my question is this. Was the first vote, did it just take more than 5 weeks to arrive? Or was it the second vote, which would make sense about 10 days? But that would mean the first vote never arrived, and someone trashed it. And if that happened to me, that happened to a lot of people. And that's one thing that I guess I'm really wanting the news media to talk about is
I agree.
Talking to people who say, I sent in my vote and it was not counted. I've talked to people who said their vote was not counted and then it was counted and then they went back and it's still not counted again. So if you're checking that, take a screenshot. And if you mailed it in, be sure or not, be sure that your
Yep.
vote is counted. It's pretty
Well,
easy
and
to
you can all go to the website too and look and see if you've mailed it in or if it's done that way. You know what?
Yeah.
I'm going to say 2 words. I'm going to say Louis DeJoy because he's still the postmaster.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you know he's a diehard GOP. He was, you
Right.
know, and I don't know why he never got rid of Biden put on Val Demings out of Florida to get him out of there, to put her on the committee. And they never did anything with it. And it's
Yeah.
like everybody's feet are stuck in glue for some
It
reason.
is. It is.
Yeah.
It is. I think that is a problem from the universe to say, look, you don't, democracy is not a passive. Democracy is active. And, we got to do so peacefully, but we do have to confront these forces. And we should have done it with Al Gore. We should have all hit the streets and demanded a recount. We should have said, we don't trust the Supreme Court. Instead, we did kind of what we all have to do is like, look, I got to go to work and pick up my kids. I don't have time to go protest in the streets anymore.
That's right. That's right.
So,
You're right.
We did kind of let it go. It might just mean that democracy is something we have to fight for. And by
We do.
course,
Oh yeah,
I mean,
we definitely do.
right?
We definitely do.
Yeah.
I'm seeing a little bit of a contention here for other psychics, and I'm just going to remind everybody, everyone's entitled to their opinion, but if you wouldn't knock anybody, please, while we're having the show, we'd appreciate it because, nobody's perfect, and we don't do that. So thank you so much, everybody. Appreciate it. I really do. So, wow. Have you heard any of this? And it's funny because I was doing a reading the other night and somebody asked a question and I said, you recognize that I'm answering the question as if he's going to be inaugurated and everything else.
Right.
So somebody had asked this question and they said that, for instance, if things don't change, that eventually what's going to happen is there's going to be territories in the United States.
Yeah.
Like Washington, Oregon, California, and the East Coast, the ones way up there. Any thoughts on that, Dave? Any thoughts
this is one reason why I just don't see the former guy taking office. Okay. I don't see, practically speaking, how we can remain a nation that is this divided,
right? And
with things like the results of this questionable. I don't see people in California saying, okay, just to take this population of people that don't have their papers, and they're just going to let ICE come and do that. I know my people, and I know that everybody in San Francisco is going to lay their body across the road and not let them do that.
Not let them do that.
We're setting up a crazy world. Oh gosh, Stephen Schwartz predicted that. Oh, how interesting. That's just who I was speaking of. But if you can imagine our leaders, even Republican conservative leaders, are sitting here thinking this is not tenable. That we cannot have somebody where the cabinet members are compromised by Russia.
Right? Like Tulsi Gabbard. Oh my God.
Well, and Putin just put naked pictures of Melania on state television. Why would he do that if not be some form of blackmail to say, yeah, I got more pictures.
I'm your puppet.
Now, if I'm a member of the NSA and my father was a member of the national, whatever that is, NSA or the FBI or CIA, I'm sitting here looking at this and going, this cannot happen. Right. First of all, if it does, I might go to prison. Second of all, I'll probably lose my job. Third, am I really going to cede my country to become a Putinized place where potentially, civil war would be all but certain because, our people in California are going to pay taxes to the federal government that again decides that no one's getting Social Security anymore. I think that even on some very high levels, conservative levels, people are trying to figure out a solution to this problem. I just don't see it realistically happening. And that is the practical side of me, the American side.
No, that's okay. Yeah. I heard, and of course, there's lots of things being floated, which are kind of crazy. But then again, I heard that once he gets in office, that he was going to give Alaska back to Putin. And I'm thinking to myself, come on, I just, I don't see that.
Well,
Yeah.
it's here's a problem with this particular situation. If he does
Hmm.
get into office, there's no limit to the amount of crazy that could happen. I mean,
Uh-huh.
it's not really as predictable. I think people turn to psychics because he became so unpredictable. Our future is unlike the past. And, to say something to
Yeah.
the negativity, you know, our institutions didn't work.
Right.
They were supposed to work in some function. The Senate was supposed to work in a particular way. And
That's
that's
right.
not Joe Biden's fault or any
Right. It
liberal's fault.
isn't. That's
Republicans'
absolutely
fault.
right. He
They
actually
didn't
got a lot
work.
in. Yeah.
Right? The
Yeah.
law did not work. The
Mhm.
judges were not neutral.
Right.
The apparatus that is supposed to be the media, people really
Yep.
stopped watching CNN and NBC because, it's not entirely fair. But look, the controversy is great for business,
Oh, sure
right?
it is. Oh,
So in
yeah.
some way, the higher the controversy for media, the better for business. I mean, that includes me too. If you
Well,
just think,
and a lot of the conservatives ended up buying out the media, or at least running it, and so they were saying, "Wow, look how good Fox is doing. Let's be like them. Let's be like them." So
yeah,
yeah, yeah,
yeah. So
absolutely,
it's not
absolutely.
any one person's fault. It's our responsibility, all of us, to stop watching the news tell us whose fault it is and to start
Yes,
going in there and being the solutions.
that's right. That's right.
Mhm.
I do want to bring up this man's name, and it's Greg Palast. He is a BBC reporter, and I watched a documentary that he did talking
Mm.
about how people enjoy, and he actually is like interviewing this lady until she realizes he's
Right.
gonna. But
Yeah.
he's asking, how can you tell people? So in other words, I could say, for instance, well, I don't want Dave's vote to count. And why? Because I just don't think his vote is going to be a good vote. And in Georgia, they don't have to take Dave's vote. It
Yeah.
doesn't even matter what the reason is. And
Yeah.
apparently Kemp had a lot to do with he's in this line of succession and in bringing this. And so he's the one also that went on and talked recently, I saw on YouTube on somebody else's podcast about it. So if you get a chance and you're interested in that, you'll be
Mhm.
amazed. Everybody will be amazed if they
It's
watch
shocking.
that. Yeah.
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 Check them out. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
shocking.
Yeah.
And this has been going on for years. Now, it's a question of whether it's legal or not. The Supreme Court said some years ago, now you can mess with that voting tabulation, even if it's racist. Yeah, no problem. Again, the institutions failed. Kemp should
Yeah.
not have been allowed to do that. And there were
That's
many,
right.
many people who did that. But
Yeah.
if they, where did they get that list of names?
Hmm.
There you're going
Hmm.
into some illegal territory, because if
You
you're
are
saying, oh, I don't believe he's a citizen, you have to verify it. That's one
correct.
thing. But
Hmm.
if you got those names speak for a specific agenda, that's another, because you knew they were a
Hmm.
political party. The other thing is, you're supposed to make them aware that they are no longer registered. You send them
Right.
a
Right.
postcard. Well, I'm not sure if that's following up on the legal side of it. But we
Right.
should know that these efforts have been made, they've been made successfully, and they have been ignored. The party did not do its job, or people did not become concerned enough to stop them from doing that. But to
Yeah.
all our credit, we just didn't have the power. We don't
Right.
have the power that the Supreme Court does. And we believed that the Supreme Court, although we disagreed with them, would be fair. And they were
We,
not.
we, we did. We did agree. But, and of course, everyone's expecting Joe to be like, at this point, because he has immunity, according to what they said about Trump, they're expecting Joe to be the same. That's not Joe's personality. Joe isn't
Right.
going to screw over the United States. And so that's why I
Right.
always say to people, calm down. Joe will do whatever he can if it's legal. That's just the way
Yes.
Joe is. Yeah.
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 Yeah. He's
And a
gonna,
lot's legal now. I hope people will utilize it.
yeah.
I think there was a problem where they were still thinking these institutions would work.
I
Ultimately, people will see
I
the truth. They will see the truth. They will see the truth. And
yeah.
there is a question of whether the certain forces in the media were so powerful that
Yeah.
they can now. I mean, why do people advertise? They don't spend money on advertising because it doesn't work,
Yeah.
right? So
That's
The
right.
other problem, of course, is you can advertise all you want now for political campaigns. You can give as much money as you want, or take over a whole media and
You
deliver only
can.
one message. Yeah,
Or you can go on somebody like Joe Rogan, who a lot of young men listen to Joe Rogan, but he walked away from all the other interviews, and he just went to the ones he wanted to go to. And I thought Kamala did really well with all her stuff that she did with with Beyonce and all the others, bringing in people that. But so I wanted to just remind you that the Georgia thing, there was a colonel in the Marine Corps, I believe, that was out in Port Hueneme. Isn't that in San Diego? Is that what Point Hueneme
sounds
is?
familiar. Yeah,
It's an air base or a base there. And somebody said he couldn't vote because he actually wasn't, he wasn't living in Georgia, and he was a person who, had moved, and he's still in the service. And when you're in the service, you vote for the state that you're from, unless you change that state. So
right.
that, and it was African Americans that were being targeted the most. That's what we
Yes.
were
Yeah,
seeing.
that's
Yeah.
absolutely true.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, it's in Ventura. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. 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 So in this last few minutes, I think it would be really, really nice to talk about two things. One of them is rethinking social media.
Mhm.
I ended up getting completely off Facebook because it doesn't sound very spiritual of me, but anybody that voted for that, I don't really want that. They voted against every interest in being an old lady on Social Security or any of the other things,
Yeah.
So I rethought that, and I didn't want to just delete people that
Yeah.
I thought voted for him. So I did that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good for you. Well,
Yeah.
that's a good question. Yeah,
Yeah.
about the media. I have to
Hmm.
say one thing Spirit's been telling me for months: stop watching politics. It's just driving you nuts. It's
Yeah.
sending your heart rate,
Lowering your vibration.
and
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
addictive. I think that one thing that has affected all of us, and no one's talking about it. We are spending hours and hours and hours dealing with technology, a machine.
Hmm.
It's like Terminator. They have taken over our brains, and they're able to manipulate our brains. They're able to put out certain messages that are completely contradictory to our own benefit. And I have
Hmm.
trouble stopping, right? One thing
I know.
about this event is it's like, I don't want to know what his picks are. I'll find out, but I just don't want to know what his cabinet picks are. It's like, I
Yeah.
know where I stand at this
Right.
point, and
Correct.
this information is counter to being helpful. So
Right.
I've
Right.
also had the
Yeah.
thought of getting rid of Facebook. I have a lot of friends who live abroad,
Well,
and
yeah, because you're out of the country and you live far from
well,
all these
even
folks. Yeah.
even more than that, I was in the Peace Corps. But
Yeah.
and I
Oh,
don't necessarily have all those people on my phone. But I'll tell you, it's just uh,
yeah.
I linked it up to for a short time. I had some other kind of service. I forget what it was, and now I get probably a couple of bits of information from people I know, and 25 look at this blog, look at this blog, look at this blog, and they'll go through these series, and it'll be like dogs, and then the next one will be soldiers, and the next one will be like things that have
Oh,
nothing to do with me, and I'll have to go block, 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 block,
I
block.
get it.
I,
Yeah.
I spend more
Yeah.
time blocking than I'm doing
Cleaning up. Yeah.
cleaning up and doing anything else. And now they're
Yeah.
wanting me to put in some kind of number. It really to get my hands. I'm almost to the point today where I am done with Facebook. I'm
Yeah.
also really angry that they let people were very much convinced
Mhm.
that things were true based on a meme they saw on Facebook. And I've been seeing
Oh,
these
yeah.
memes
Oh, yeah.
for a while, and it angers me that they're allowing what is disinformation from foreign countries.
Well, here's a real interesting thing. I have my students in college freshman classes that I teach writing a research paper, and they have to use only academic sourcing. And I told them they could write whatever they want, but they have to pick a controversial topic, choose a side, bring in the counter argument. It's what they have to do before they can get out of this English 101.
Mhm.
So I had the rough drafts come in last week, and the first rough draft I started to read was why Donald Trump was the best choice of president that anybody could ever imagine, and this girl's probably 16. And so she didn't vote, but she drank the Kool-Aid. She went on and on. People say he's a felon, but he's not. And I'm writing like, yes, he is. Jury of his peers. And I'm going, oh my God. Finally, I had to write her and say, you really, really, really need to pick another topic, because I was so triggered by all of the memes that they have seen on TikTok and Facebook and all those things. And that's what they're getting. They're getting this diet of lies, and they're believing them. Yeah.
Well, a friend of my mom's chose Trump because she's like, oh, I hate them both. But I saw a message on Facebook that said, if you're Christian, don't vote for me. Brought to you by Kamala Harris. My mom's like, did you really think that Kamala Harris told you not to vote for her? Did you truly believe that? And she did. There's just a level of, here we have this new media. We're not really yet able to figure out what it's doing to us. We're not able to figure out what's true and what's not true. You come from an educational background, and I was a teacher for many years, and my first A+ in college was logic. So I'm like really interested in looking at that. But it's not a thing anymore where people evaluate arguments.
No, it's not. No, and it's all anti-intellectualism. It always has been here in the United States, where your degree is the same as my opinion. And I don't mean people have to have an educational degree. If they're informed and they do brainstorming, or they do critical thinking, they use their skills, then that's perfectly acceptable. But I just feel like it was a Republican talking point, and a lot of it's on TikTok too, for the younger ones. And of course they want to get rid of TikTok, but the manipulation by media, and people bought. There was one guy that was sad that he voted for Trump after he learned that his mother and father are illegal immigrants, and they're going to be sent back, and maybe him too. Oh, well, he wouldn't do that to me. I voted for him. You want to bet?
Really? Yeah, really? Do you really believe that? It's look, it's like a bully. The bully comes and he takes control of the class, and you can either be alongside the bully or you can get bullied. Right. You can either side with the underdog and suffer bullying yourself for a long time, or you can get on the same side of the bully. I do think that there was a split that happened, and that a lot of us on the spiritual direction went more towards love. I know I did, and understanding and non-judgment.
Non-judgment, compassion.
I think that's a good way to go. But there was a split. A lot of people went completely the opposite, and they went to a place where they had no empathy. And it's like, it's not just the people south of the border that I'm worried about. It is just those individuals who don't say, that could be me. I could be the person in this situation. I don't know what to do about the border crisis.
No, neither do I.
We start with, therefore, but for the grace of God, go I. That could be me. And what I do should at least have sympathy for those people. I would do, if I were in the middle of a gang war, I would do the same thing. It's not
of course.
Yeah, of course you would do that. And you're a 3-year-old kid walking across a continent, and you're not responsible for what happened.
That's right. Yeah.
Again, we don't have to be the welfare state for the world, but there are a host of ways where we could start to solve some of these problems, like maybe not give them all of our guns, maybe take responsibility for things that we have done in those governments, especially in the 60s and 70s. Again, that doesn't come to a conclusion, but let's think about it. If you believe in multiple lifetimes, next lifetime, that could be you.
It could be you. It's right. Yeah. Almost a bitch. Yeah.
If you consider yourself a religious person, well, let's say that you are a Christian. The first thing that you should think of is how others might feel. That doesn't mean you have to go become Mother Teresa, but you do have to do what Jesus told you to do, which is
right. That's right. Yeah. You're absolutely right. Yeah. So finally, I just want to say that, how do we stay calm and centered? Let's talk just a little bit about this before we go. And I just want to remind everybody to please, if you haven't already signed up for Dave's channel, please sign up for Dave's channel. And anybody that's on Dave's, please come on over by. I do a lot of work with a lot of different people, and I'd really love to have you. But Dave did do, I don't know if you ever watched the regression that he had probably about 2 months ago, I guess. That was me, and he's got a few others he's going to put up eventually, but he's got Deborah up right now, which is going to come out real soon. So make sure you do that.
Yeah. Well, along the lines of centering and just like, in some ways, I must have sort of anticipated this because for probably 4 months, about 4 months ago, I put in a lot of videos on what to do now to keep yourself calm. This was before this stressful event. I saw it coming, and I wanted to get away a little bit from the political predicting and a little bit more into, help for us. So we'll see that series, and by all means, go to each one of those videos. Each, and they're different readers, some of them very well known, some of them fairly well known, and some of them probably new, and each gave great advice about how to stay calm in this time. Now, in my particular, I'll just tell you what I do. I get up every morning and I meditate. And as I am meditating, I am finally a little bit good that I can stop so much chattering. That'll happen for you all. Don't be surprised. It'll be just chatter, chatter, chatter. And you'll notice some things that are good to notice when you're starting. But I've gotten to the point where I can say, all right, I'll think about that later, and actually get to a time where I feel like I'm not hearing the chattering so much. It's not easy, but I can get there. And I would suggest you do that. And then what I'm doing is kind of half praying and kind of half connecting. And what I do is I just go and I, sort of do my method that I do for trance channeling, which is, it's almost like me going up a flight of stairs, taking a landing, another flight of stairs, taking a landing, another flight of stairs, and just connecting to that energy that I feel. It's almost always the light, and just connect with the light and ask like, hey, can you help calm me down right now? And I also ask that it can be something like just sort of a divine connection where I am seeing a future that I'd like, rather than seeing somebody be punished, seeing a world where right and left live in harmony, where people work and solve problems, where we live in a planet where everybody's accepted, and envisioning that world. It's just like manifestation, just like we were told some years ago how to manifest. It is that manifestation, just seeing that in a, I'm going to say, somewhat unselfish way, because I really am trying to see it for everyone. From there, kind of saying, okay, Spirit, can you lift me up here a bit? I need some support. I will always be seeing images of calm, images of balance. I feel like I'm getting a message that's quite audio, which is, it's going to work out fine. Spirit needs to go through this time to evolve and that kind of thing. And that's what I suggest you do every morning. The worst thing that can happen is you'll be closer to Spirit. The best thing that happens.
Nothing wrong with that. You're absolutely right. Yeah, you're absolutely
right. You've had some practice. And number 3, you will feel much calmer. It's almost like the fear-based talking stops. If we really need to go to a place where there is danger, we'll go there in a few weeks and start making some kind of plans. But I think right now, and trust me, we're going to do that in a few weeks. But I think right now we really need to go in and calm ourselves every day and every night when I go to sleep, because I'll wake up in the middle of the night and I'll go through the process again. One thing is, you have agency over yourself. No matter what happens out there, you always have the power to act, to calm, to speak with more enlightened ways, to do your best. And that's what I would suggest. Or look again at those readers in the past 6 months who've gone on for sort of those special purposes.
Yep. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Very good advice. I have to tell you, before 2022, I wasn't as calm as I am now. There's something about the energy of being in this community that has brought me so much joy and so much sense of calm. Even when I'm having a bad day, everybody has been so kind and so loving, and there's just nothing like it. And, between the readers and the subscribers. Well,
that's the good side of the technology advance. I
Right.
wouldn't be without it. We wouldn't
Yeah.
have this community that we do have it. So there are very much positives about our
There
time,
are. Yeah.
which is
There are.
a great way to phrase it too. Think of the positives that are going to happen. We know we're going to stick together no matter what happens. We know we're going to move forward with an enlightened sense of what to do. We know we're not going to be cruel, and
Yeah.
we know that that is the most important thing in our lifetime. When
Definitely.
we look back at it, what did
That's
we
right.
really do?
Yeah. So practice looking for most beneficial outcome. Practice saying that everything is going to work out because what's her name that does the channeling? Everything always, Esther Hicks, everything always works out for me. Everything always works out.
Yes.
That's what you need to say. And don't hold on to, as Dave says, I agree with you. Instead of holding on to retribution, we can say, gee, wouldn't it be nice if this is what I want it to look like? People are happy, they're kind to each other, and so on. So yeah, I love that, Dave.
Love is always going to conquer it. Love is
will.
always going to conquer it. And to go into, oh, I want him punished, is a little bit of a distraction from the love. You will not get as much out of it.
And it's hard for us. It is hard for us, but we got to do it.
It's hard. It's really hard. When you go to love, things work out better for everyone. Even those you might disagree with will be like, well, okay, but they're still a loving person. And those who you agree with be like, well, maybe I could be a little bit more like that. And I'm not going to say that I'm really good at this. Okay.
I know. No, it's a work in progress, Dave. It is. It's almost like you get up and you choose it every day. You have to choose it. Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, that's awesome. So yes, Mary Starshine, one of my viewers, also wants you to work with Terry from Holding Your Space. Terry does meditations, and she's has a meditation tribe every single day. And I'm shouting that out to everybody that's here. There's a lot of other people in the chat that are also channel people, that are, and I know it's hard to get in touch with everybody, but they just wanted you to know.
Terry, I'd be interested in doing that.
I bet you would.
Thanks. So guys, you guys have very insightful comments. I keep getting distracted by that's interesting. That's interesting. And very kind. I appreciate it.
Yes, absolutely. I find that the people in the chat, they might not want to get in front of the screen, but they sure share wonderful stuff in the chat. So
they sure do. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Dave. Always a wonderful time. And Dave's going to be putting out some more of my regression later on, maybe first of the year or something like that. So, but give it a couple hours and you'll be able to see what Deborah Lupin told him, which is
very interesting stuff.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody. Thank you for being with us today. Thank you so much.